Chapter 15, How to Outwit the Sixth Ghost of Fear. Clearing the brain for riches. Before you can put an portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. The preparation is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding of three enemies you shall have to clear out. These are indecision, doubt, and fear. The sixth sense will never function while these three negatives or any one of them remain in your mind. These members of this unholy trio are closely related. Where one is found, the other two are close at hand. Indecision is sealing of fear. Indecision is the seedling of fear. Remember this as you read. Indecision crystallizes into doubt. The two blend and become fear. The blending process is often slow. This is the one reason why these their three enemies are so dangerous. They germinate and grow without their presence being observed. The remainder of this chapter describes an end that must be attained before the philosophy as a whole can be put into practical use. It also analyzes a condition that has reduced a huge number of people to poverty, and it's a state, a truth that must be understood by all who accumulate riches, whether measured in terms of money or a state of mind of far greater value. The purpose of this chapter is to turn the spotlight upon the cause and the cure of six basic fear. Before we master any enemy, we must know its name, its habit, and its place of abode. As you read, analyze yourself carefully and determine which, if any, of the six common fears have attached themselves to you. Do not be deceived by the habits of these subtle enemies. Sometimes they remain hidden in the subconscious mind where they are difficult to locate and still more difficult to eliminate. The six basic fears. The six basic fears. Every human suffers from some combination of them at one time or another. Most people are fortunate if they do not suffer from the entire six, named in the order of their most common appearance. They are the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love of someone, the fear of old age, the fear of death. All other fears are of minor importance and can be grouped under the six headings. The prevalence of these fears as a curse to the world runs in the cycle. For almost 6 years, while the depression was on, we floundered on the cycle of the fear of poverty. During the periods when we were at the war or faced with the terror, we were in the cycle of fear of death. Even in periods of prosperity and peace, we are in the cycle of fear of ill health, as evidenced by the epidemic of various diseases which spread themselves all over the world. Fears are nothing more than a state of mind. One state of mind is subject to control and direction. Doctors, as everyone knows, are less subject to attack by disease than ordinary laymen for the reason that doctors do not fear disease. Doctors have been known to treat hundreds of people suffering from such contagious diseases as smallpox in a day without being infected. Their immunity against the disease consisted largely, if not solely, in their absolute lack of fear. We can create nothing that is not first conceived in the form of an impulse of thought. Following this statement comes another of still greater importance, namely, thought impulses begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent, whether in those thoughts are voluntary or involuntary. Thoughts, impulses picked up through the ether by mere chance. Thoughts released by other minds may determine one's financial, business, professional, or social destiny just as surely as thought impulses one create the intent by intent and design. We are here to laying down the foundation for the presentation of a fact of great importance to the person who does not understand why some people appear to be lucky while others of equal or greater ability, training, experience, and brain capacity seem destined to ride with misfortune. This may be explained by the statement that human beings have the ability to control their own minds completely. With this control, they may open their minds to the thought impulses released by other brains and close the doors tightly and admit only thought impulses of their own choice. Nature has endowed with the absolute control over but one thing, and that is the thought. This fact, coupled with the additional fact that everything people create begins in the form of thought, leads one very near to the principle by which fear may be mastered. If it is true that all the thought has tendency to clothe itself in its physical equivalent, and this is true beyond any reasonable room for doubt, it is equally true that the thought impulses of fear and poverty cannot be translated into terms of courage and financial gain. Following the Wall Street crash of 1929, the people of America were compelled to think of poverty. Slowly but surely, that mass thought was crystallized into its physical equivalent, which was known as depression. This had to happen. It is in conformity with the laws of nature. The fear of poverty. There can be no compromise between poverty and riches. The two roads that led to poverty and riches travel in opposite direction. If you want riches, you must refuse to accept any circumstance that leads towards poverty. The word riches is here is used in the broadest sense, meaning financial, spiritual, mental, and material estates. The starting point of your path that leads to riches to is desire. In chapter 1 and 2, you received full instructions for the purpose use of desire. Proper use of desire. In this chapter on fear, you have complete instructions for preparing your mind to make practical use of desire. Here, then, is the place to give yourself a challenge that will definitely determine how much of this philosophy you have absorbed. Here is the point at which you can turn the prophet and foretell accurately what the future holds in store for you. If after reading this book you are willing to accept poverty, you may as well as make up your mind to receive poverty. This is one decision you cannot avoid. If you demand riches, determine what form and how form will be required to satisfy you. You know the road that leads to the riches. You have been given a roadmap which, if followed, will keep you in that road. And if you neglect to make that start or stop before you arrive, no one will be blame you but you. This responsibility is yours. No alibis will save you from accepting the responsibility. If you now fail or refuse to demand riches of life, the acceptance call for but one thing, the only thing that you can control, and that is the state of mind. A state of mind is something that one assumes. It cannot be purchased, it must be created. For fear of poverty is a state of mind, nothing else, but it is sufficient to destroy one's chances of achievement in any undertaking. This fear paralyzes the faculty of reason, destroys the faculty of imagination, kills of self reliance, undermines enthusiasm, discourages initiative, leads to uncertainty of purpose, encourages procrastination, wipes out enthusiasm, and makes self control an impossibility. It takes the charm for one's personality, destroys the possibility of accurate thinking, diverts concentration of effort. It masters the persistence, turns the willpower into nothingness, destroys ambition and beclouds the memory, and invites failure into every conceivable form. It kills the love and assassinates the finer emotions of the heart, discourages friendship and invites disaster in 100 forms, leads to sleeplessness, misery, and unhappiness, and all of this despite the obvious truth that we live in a society of overabundance of everything the heart could desire, with nothing standing between us and our desires except lack of definite purpose. The fear of poverty is without doubt the most destructive of the six basic fears. It has been placed at the head of the list because it is the most difficult to master. Considerable courage is required to state the truth about the origin of this fear, and still greater courage to accept the truth after it has been stated. The fear of poverty grew out of human tendency to prey upon others economically. Nearly all animals lower than humans are motivated by instinct, but as the capacity to think is limited, they prey upon one another physically. Humans, with their superior sense of intuition, with the capacity to think and to do reason, do not eat other humans bodily. They get more satisfaction out of eating them financially. The age in which we live seems to be consumed by money madness. People are considered less than the dust of the earth unless they can display a fat bank account. But if they have money, never mind how acquired, they are too often idealized and treated as being above the law. They rule in politics, dominate in business, and the whole world about them bows in respect when they pass by. Nothing brings so much suffering and humility as poverty. Only those who have experienced poverty understand the full meaning of this. It is no wonder that we fear poverty. Through a long line of inherited experiences, we have learned for sure that some people cannot be trusted where the matters of money and earthly possessions are concerned. This is a rather stinging indictment, the worst part of it being that is true. Many marriages are motivated by wealth possessed by one or both of the contracting parties. It is no wonder, therefore, that the divorce courts are busy. So eager are people to possess wealth that they will acquire it in any feasible manner, through legal methods if possible, but through other methods if necessary or expedient. Self analysis may disclose weakness that one does not like and to acknowledge. This form of examination is essential to all who demand of life more than mediocrity and poverty. Remember, as you check yourself point by point, that you are the court and the jury, the prosecution and the defense, the plaintiff and the defendant. Face the facts squarely, ask yourself definite questions, and demand direct replies. When the examination is over, you will know more about yourself. If you do not feel that you can be impartial judge in this self examination, call upon oneself who knows you will serve as judge. While you cross examine yourself, you are after the truth. Get it no matter at what cost, even though it may temporarily embarrass you. The majority of people, if asked what they fear most, would reply, I fear nothing. The reply would be inaccurate because few people realize that they are bound, handicapped, whipped spiritually and physically through some form of fear. So subtle and deeply seated is the emotion of fear that one may go through life burdened with it, never recognizing its presence. Only a courageous analysis will disclose the presence of this universal enemy. When you begin such analysis deeply, search deeply into your character. Here is a list of the symptoms you should look for. Symptoms of fear of poverty. Indifference, commonly expressed through lack of ambition, willingness to tolerate poverty, acceptance of whatever compensation of life may offer without protest, mental and physical laziness, lack of initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, and self control. Indecision, the habit of permitting others to do one's thinking, staying on the fence. Doubt, generally expressed through alibis and excuses designed to cover up, explain away, or apologize for one's failure, sometimes expressed in the form of envy of those who are successful and by criticizing them. Worry, usually expressed by finding fault with others, a tendency to spend beyond one's income, neglect of personal appearance, scowling and frowning, intemperance in the use of alcoholic drink, sometimes used through the use of narcotics, nervousness, lack of poise, self consciousness, and lack of self reliance, overcaution, the habit of looking for the negative side of every circumstance, thinking and talking of the possible failure instead of concentrating upon the means of succeeding, knowing all roads to disaster but never searching for the plans to avoid failure, waiting for the right time to begin putting ideas and plans into action until the waiting becomes a permanent habit, remembering those who have failed and forgetting those who have succeeded, seeing the hole in the donut but overlooking the donut. Procrastination, the habit of putting off until tomorrow matters that should have been done last year, spending through enough time in creating alibis and excuses to have done the job. This symptom is closely related to the overcaution, doubt, and worry, refusal to accept responsibility when it can be avoided, willingness to compromise rather than to put up a stiff fight, compromising with difficulties instead of harnessing and using them as stepping stones to advancement, bargaining with life for a penny instead of demanding prosperity, opulence, riches, contentment, and happiness, and planning what to do if and when overtaken by failure instead of burning all bridges and making retreat impossible. This is manifested further by weakness of and of to- often total lack of self confidence, definiteness of purpose, self control, initiative, enthusiasm, ambition, thrift, and sound reasoning ability, expecting poverty instead of demanding riches, and association with those who accept poverty instead of seeking the company of those who demand and receive riches. The fear of criticism. Most people are least very uncomfortable when criticized. In some cases, they may become depressed and despondent when others censor them. The fear of criticism robs people of their initiative, destroys their power of imagination, limits their individuality, takes away their self reliance, and does them a damage in a hundred other ways. Parents often do their irreparable injury by criticizing them. The mother of one of my boyhood chums used to punish him with the switch almost daily, always completing the job with the statement, you will end up in a prison before you are 20. He was sent to reform school at the age of 17. Criticism is one of the form of service of which everyone has too much. Everyone has stock of it and that is handed out grains whether gratis whether called for it or not. One's relatives are often the worst offenders. One's nearest relatives are often the worst offenders. It should be recognized as a crime. In reality, it is a crime of the worst nature. For any parent to build inferiority complex in the mind of a child through unnecessary criticism. Employers who understand human nature get the best there is out of people not by criticism but by constructive suggestion. Parents may accomplish the same results with their children. Criticism will plant fear or resentment in the human heart, but it will not build love of affection. The fear of ill health. This fear may be traced to both physical and social heredity. It is closely associated in origin with the causes of fear of old age and death because it leads one closely to the border of terrible worlds, of which nothing is really known, but concerning which some discomforting stories have been told. Certain unethical people engaged in the business of selling health have had not little to do with the keeping alive the fear of ill health. In the main, ill health is feared because of the suffering it causes and the fear of and uncertainty of what may happen when death comes. In addition, there is the fear of the economic toll it may claim. A reputable doctor estimated that 75% of all people who visit doctors for professional service are suffering with the hypochondria, imaginary illness. It has been shown most convincingly that fear of this disease, even where there is not the slightest cause of fear, often produces the physical symptoms of the disease feared. Powerful and mighty in the human mind, builds or destroys it. Through a series of experiments conducted some years ago, it was proved that people might be made ill by suggestion. We conducted this experiment by causing three acquaintances to visit the victims, each of who asked the question, "What ails you?" "You look terribly ill." The first questionnaire usually provoked a grin and a nonchalant, "Oh, nothing, I'm all right," from victim. The second questionnaire was usually answered with the statement, "I don't know exactly, but I do feel bad." The third questionnaire was usually met with the frank admission that the victim was actually feeling ill. Try this on acquaintance if you doubt that it will make them uncomfortable, but do not carry the experiment too far. In some primitive cultures, people take vengeance upon their enemies by placing the spell on the victim. Because they believe the spell is real, victims do become sick and often die. There is overwhelming evidence that this disease sometimes begin in the form of a negative thought impulse. Such an impulse may be passed from one mind to another by suggestion or created by an individual in their own mind. Doctors sometimes send patients into climates for their health because a change of mental attitude is necessary. The seed of fear of health lives in every human mind. Worry, fear, discouragement, disappointment in love and business affairs cause this seed to germinate and grow. The fear of loss of love. The original source of this inherent fear needs little description. It is obviously grew out of ancient men's polygamous habit of stealing his fellow men's means mate and taking liberties with her whenever he could. The fear of loss of love of someone is the most painful of all the six basic fears. It probably plays more havoc with the body and mind than any of others. One of the distinguishing symptoms of this fear is jealousy, being suspicious of friends and loved ones without any reasonable evidence. Another is the habit of accusing one's partner of infidelity without grounds. Further symptoms are general suspicion of everyone, absolute faith in no one, and finding fault with friends, relatives, and business associates and loved ones upon the highest provocation or without any cause whatsoever. The fear of old age, the possibility of ill health, which is more common as people grow older, is a major cause of this common fear. Eroticism also enters into the cause of the fear of old age, as no one cherishes the thought of diminishing sexual attraction. Another contributing cause of the fear of old age is the possibility of loss of freedom and independence, as old age may bring with it loss of both physical and economic freedom. Some people show a tendency to slow down and develop an inferiority complex develop an inferiority complex when they get older, falsely believing themselves to be slipping because of age. The truth is that some of our most useful years, mentally and spiritually, are those in later life. Unfortunately, there are older men and women who lose their initiative, imagination, and self reliance by falsely believing themselves too old. Exercise these qualities. The fear of death. To some, this is the cruelest of all basic fears. The reason is as obvious. We not know what to expect after death. As Shakespeare stated so well in the Hamlet, it is the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. The fear of death is not as common now as it was during the age of when there were no great colleges and universities. Scientists have turned the spotlight of truth upon the world, and this truth is rapidly freeing people from this terrible fear of death. Through the aid of biology, astronomy, geology, and other related sciences, the fear of this dark ages that gripped off the minds of people and destroyed their reason have been dispelled. This fear is useless. Death will come no matter what anyone may you think about it, except it is a necessity as the pass the thought out of your mind. It must be necessity or it would not come at all. The entire world is made up of only two things, energy and matter. In elementary physics, we learn that neither matter nor energy, the only two known realities, can be created or destroyed. Both matter and energy can be transformed. Life is energy if it is anything. If neither energy nor matter can be destroyed, of course, life cannot be destroyed. Life, like another forms of energy, may be passed through various processes of transition or change, but it cannot be destroyed. Death is not mere change or transition, then nothing comes after that. Death except a long, eternal, peaceful sleep, and sleep is nothing to be feared. Thus, you may wipe out forever the fear of death. Worry is a state of mind based upon fear. It works slowly but persistently. It is insidious and subtle, step by step. It digs itself in until it paralyzes one's reasoning faculty and destroys self confidence and initiative. Worry is a form of sustained fear caused by indecision. Therefore, it is a state of mind which can be controlled. An unsettled mind is helpless. Indecision makes an unsettled mind. Most individuals lack the willpower to reach decisions promptly and to stand by them after they have been made, even during normal business condition. During periods of economic unrest, people are handicapped not only by their inherent tendency to be slow at reaching decisions, but also by the indecisions of others around them who have created a state of mass indecision. Six basic fears become translated into state of worry through indecision. Relieve yourself forever of fear of death by reaching a decision to accept death as an inescapable event. Whip the fear of poverty by reaching a decision to get along with whatever wealth you can accumulate without worry. Put your foot upon the neck of the fear of criticism by reaching a decision not to worry about what other people think, do, or say. Eliminate the fear of old age by reaching a decision to accept it not as handicap but as a great blessing which carries with it wisdom, self-control, and understanding not known to youth. Acquit yourself of the fear of ill health by decision to forget symptoms. Master the fear of loss of love by reaching a decision to get along without love if that is necessary. Kill the habit of worry in all its forms by reaching a general blanket decision that nothing life has to offer its worth the price of worry. With the decision will come poise, peace of mind, and calmness of that they will bring happiness. A person whose mind is filled with fear not only destroys their own chances of intelligent action, but transmits these destructive vibrations into the mind of other people and destroys their chances as well. Even a dog or a horse knows when its master lacks courage. Moreover, a dog or horse will pick up the vibrations of fear through off by its master and behave accordingly. One finds the same capacity to pick up the vibrations of fear lower down the line of intelligence in the animal kingdom. A honeybee immediately senses fear in a mind of person. For reasons unknown, a bee will sting the person whose mind is releasing vibrations of fear much more readily than it will the molest the person whose mind registers no fear. The vibrations of fear pass from one mind to another just as quickly as surely as the sound of human voices pass from the broadcasting station to the receiving station and by the self same medium. Mental telepathy is reality. Thoughts pass from one mind to another voluntarily, whether or not this fact is recognized by either the person releasing the thoughts or the person who picks up those thoughts. The person who gives expression by words of mouth no to negative or destructive thoughts is practically certain to experience the result of those words in the form of destructive kickback. The result of destructive thought impulse alone, the aid of words also produces a kickback in more than one ways. First of all, and perhaps most important to be remembered, the person who releases thoughts of destructive nature must suffer damage through the breaking down of the faculty of creative imagination. Secondly, the presence in the mind of any destructive emotion develops a negative personality that repels people and often converts them into antagonists. The third source of damage to a person who entertains or releases negative thoughts lies in the significant fact also produces a kickback in more ways than one. First of all, perhaps most important to be remembered, the person who releases thoughts of destructive nature must suffer damage through the breaking down of faculty of creative imagination. Secondly, the presence of mind of any destructive emotion develops a negative personality that repels people and often converts them into antagonists. The third source of damage to the person who entertains or releases negative thoughts lies in the significant fact these thought impulses are not only damaging to others but they embed themselves in the subconscious mind of a person releasing them and then become the part of their character. One is never through with a thought merely by releasing it. When a thought is released, it spreads in every direction through the medium of the ether, but it also plants its permanently in the subconscious mind of a person releasing it. Your business in life is presumably to achieve success. To be successful, you must find peace of mind, acquire the material needs of life, and above all, attain happiness. All these evidences of success begin in the form of thought impulses. You may control your own mind, you have the power to feed it whatever thought impulses you choose. With this privilege, goals goes all the responsibility of using it constructively. You are the master of your own earthly destinies just as surely as you have the power to control your own thoughts. You may influence, direct, and eventually control on your environment. You have the power to control your own thoughts. You may influence, direct, and eventually control your own environment, making your life what you want it to be. On the other hand, you may neglect to the exercise is the privilege that is yours to make your life to order, thus casting yourself upon the broad sea of circumstance where you will be tossed hither and yon like a chip on the waves of the ocean.